Again, the connection got bad. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wilderness Fitness Podcast. I am your host tonight, Dr. Rob Minturn. Tonight, I'm coming at you live from Madison, Wisconsin. I'm down here for the Beast Mode Endurance Archery Challenge. If you guys have not checked out the Beast Mode games or the Beast Mode Archery Challenges at all, it's definitely something to keep you accountable in January, February, March, when the days are a little bit shorter and you're wanting to stay in bed when it's cold and snowy. So definitely give those guys a look for any sort of events over the summer and then the January and April challenges. Tonight, we're talking about tight muscles and bad relationships and how they are very similar. This came to me on one of my commutes to and or from work a couple months ago. It's been on the list of podcast topics that I've wanted to talk about, and now I'm finally getting to it. I think it's a good time of year as people start to ramp up their training. Montana's tags just came out. New Mexico just drew. I saw an old client drew in Mexico. So they, as people start to ramp up the training, they're going to start feeling tight, stiff, and sore. So I wanted to talk about this. So let's unpack what the meaning of tight means before we talk about how a tight muscle is like a bad relationship. So tight muscle, when someone comes to me and they say they feel tight, typically it's one of two things going on. A muscle feels tight because it's truly short, like the muscle and the tendon have truly shortened. And then the other reason is that there's a lot of tension in that muscle. So why is a muscle short? A muscle is typically short due to the fact that someone was immobilized for a while, or someone had a recent, they were immobilized. A recent surgery is not going to make the muscle bellies any shorter. It's not going to make the tendons any shorter. It's going to make them stiffer because of the fact that you just had surgery. But truly the only way that someone becomes, the muscle belly and the tendon themselves become shorter is immobilization or lack of use. So being in a sling, being in a knee immobilizer with the knee locked out straight, like after a quad tendon repair, and let's say that the quad tendon repair does not actually go well, so the person cannot bend their knee completely. At that point, after about a year or so, it's called a contracture, so they cannot get the knee to bend like they used to. So the muscle itself, the tendon itself, is truly shortened up, right? In a situation where someone has a lot of tension, there's a high amount of tone in the muscle. There's a couple different reasons why someone can have high tone in the muscle. One of them can be neurological. So neurological conditions like MS, cerebral palsy, a traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury. Sometimes folks actually rely on the tension in their muscle to function. So we don't necessarily in therapy want to take that tension away. So tension is not always bad, especially in someone dealing with a neurological condition. If we stretch it out in the clinic, sometimes we do take away their function. So we need to be mindful of that as clinicians. In the orthopedic realm, typically a muscle is going to have a lot of tension in it for two different reasons. One, because it's weak, and two, because there might be an acute injury or there's soreness, usually an acute injury. I won't even say soreness, but usually an acute injury, a recent injury. So those are the two reasons why a muscle can be tight or have a high amount of tension, usually, like I said, a recent injury or the muscle's weak. With the muscle being weak, let's unpack that a little bit more because that's gonna come into play when we unpack that phrase. A muscle that has a high amount of tension that we come to find out is weak, right? Someone's gonna feel like my quad is always tight, or I have some tightness between my shoulder blades. It never seems to go away, despite the fact that I take the foam roller to it, or I take a lacrosse ball to it, I take one of those Theracanes to it. I'm smashing the shit out of my shoulder blade, or I'm smashing the shit out of my quad with the foam roller, and nothing seems to relieve it. You're not strengthening it, right? So if a muscle has a high amount of tension and it's weak, those modalities, the stretching modalities, are not going to do anything. You have to physiologically get that muscle stronger to relieve the tension. The brain, the muscles still have to stabilize the shoulder blade, the muscles still have to stabilize the hip, the muscles still have to stabilize the knee. So if those muscles are not strong enough to do so, in and of themselves, the brain is then going to send more signals down to that muscle to help stabilize the joint, right? That is the sole focus of the brain, is to keep the body upright, safe, and alive. So if the muscle's not strong enough to do so, it's going to send more signals, so that way the joint is then stabilized, so it reduces the risk of injury for that joint via higher amounts of tension in the muscle. So unpacking the phrase of tight muscles are like bad relationships. So what that means is that muscles, what that means is the muscles have not gone through enough hard things yet to make them properly adapt. So with that, lifting weights, I'm going to give 3 examples. So lifting weights, there's load applied to the muscle, there's load applied to the joint, there's load applied to the tendons. If it's done properly, there's going to be growth, there's going to be progression, there's going to be progress, okay? Lifting weights, again, there's going to be load. If you do too much, say you're new to it or you've taken some time off of training and you bite off more than you can chew, you might squat a little too much, you might do too many pull-ups, you might do too many deadlifts, and now you have overloaded that tendon and those muscles more than what they're used to. So now you're going to piss off that tissue, okay? So that's an instance where lifting weights is not necessarily going to be a good thing as far as putting the muscle under load and making it adapt. The other way is stretching. So with stretching, there's continued tension. There really isn't that hard. So it's like to stretch a muscle, it's really not that difficult. All you're really doing is taking that muscle to end range. There's going to be no growth of that muscle because you're not applying a load to it. And so with that tension, with the stretching, there's still going to be tension in the muscle, again, because you're not making it adapt. So in comparison to bad relationships, when you have a relationship, this could be a spouse, this could be a boyfriend, girlfriend, this could be a friendship, this could be a hunting buddy, it really doesn't matter. In a relationship, when you go through a difficult scenario, a hard time, or some wild event where you have to rely on each other, if things go smooth, the relationship is likely going to grow, right? The process of it, the decision-making of it was shared, the decision-making process went smooth, the outcome was good, you're likely going to grow from that, you're going to have a closer bond, you're going to have a better relationship, right? So that's how lifting weights is good for making tight muscles adapt and eventually not be so tight. Because you've put them through hard things, they can now ease up on the tension and not have to work so hard to stabilize the joint, okay? The second example, where you lifted too much weight and you overloaded the tendon and now things are super pissed. So in a relationship, you go through that same exact scenario, your communication is piss poor, the communication process did not go well and the outcome is very bad, right? The desired outcome was not achieved. That's like lifting weights and doing too much too soon, right? You loaded the scenario, the relationship with too much of a stressful scenario. The end result was not good. The whole process was not good. Same thing with lifting weights and doing too much. And the end result was pissing off the tissue and not actually getting the tightness to resolve. The last scenario, so stretching, right? Stretching is not hard. You simply take the muscle to end range. So there's really nothing to it. If you have a relationship, again, this could be a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, hunting buddy, friendship, whatever. If you have a relationship where you really don't go through that many hard times, you're not really going to see growth within that relationship as far as like the ability to rely on each other when it matters. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapy or a relationship specialist, so don't take my word for it. I'm single, so it's really don't take my word for this. But I'm relating it to that, like with the buddies that I've gone hunting with, there is in some backpacking, and the guys that I've backpacked with, there's been some times where things have not gone as smoothly as they could have, right, or as they should have, or as it would have hoped to be. But on the other end of that, you realize that you can rely on them. So when you go to the mountain again together, it's easier to rely on them. You know that you can rely on them. If shit goes south, you're able to know that they're going to have your back. So with that, again, we would have never figured that out had we not gone and done basically a stress test before that scenario happened, right? We would have been figuring out as we went. It would have been that first scenario, one of the first two scenarios where did we overload the relationship, like the communication a little too much to where we're actually not going to get better from it? Or was it just the right amount to where we're actually going to get better and then be ready for the next hairy scenario out in the mountain. So keep that in mind. As far as like if you're dealing with any sort of tight muscles, a lot of people want to just stretch it. They just want to stretch and stretch and stretch. It's not actually taking care of anything. It feels good at the time, but again, it's short-term relief. Same thing in a relationship. You do fun things, but it's really not stressing the relationship. Sometimes you have to do hard things to make the relationship stronger, make the bond stronger. So it's the same thing in the human body. Lifting weights, adding load to it, even with bands, is going to be beneficial in getting that tightness to resolve and ultimately clearing up your symptoms. Okay. Hopefully this was not too confusing. Hopefully this does not make you do a mirror check with your own relationship if you are dating someone or married to someone. But if it does, maybe it'll make it better. But hope you guys have a great weekend. I will be hiking hopefully 12 to 15 miles tomorrow. We're going to see how it goes. But I'm going to be hitting hay here pretty quick. And we'll catch you guys next week. Peace.